Well, there's a front page story this morning that says that the president plans to flex his executive powers muscle, so to speak, to bypass Congress when necessary to push through the things that he wants to accomplish. In fact, several aides, according to that story, say that the Obama administration's "we can't wait" strategy, which came in basically back in the fall, is fired up and ready to go for a second term. And that has raised some concerns with Republican Congressman Peter Roskam, who joins me now. He's the chief deputy whip, also co-chair of the House Energy Action Team. Congressman, welcome. Good morning to you from
Thanks,
Chicago.
Martha.
Good to have you this morning. So, you know, when you take a look at this, you look at the history of the president's work with Congress, and he was criticized, really, for sort of leaving all of the work on health care to be hammered out in Congress. Same criticism was leveled at him when it came to the stimulus package. So perhaps he looks at those two things and says, you know what, I'm better off when I find ways, legal ways, to do things through executive powers.
Well, I think the president has really been very disappointing in how he has approached this. The country gave him an overwhelming vote of confidence when he won a big election in 2008 that's been well documented and well discussed. And for 2 years he had open field running with no restraining influence whatsoever, essentially, to move forward with the agenda. And he passed health care, stimulus, tried to do cap and trade, and all of these large spending moves. And then the country said, hold on a minute. This isn't what we signed up for, and they very much and very clearly said we want to move in a different direction. And rather than listening to the public, I would argue, the president has said, look, I really don't care what the results are the 2010 election. I'm going to continue to move forward with an agenda that seems to be more and more and more out of step. And so what does he do? He criticizes a co-equal branch of government, the United States Supreme Court, and basically admonishes them and said there's no way they can strike down his signature health care law because they wouldn't dare think it's unconstitutional. And I think what he's not doing is being tempered and restrained by the election results of 2010, and instead he's just continuing to move forward on an agenda that is seemingly more and more and more out of touch and is underperforming from an economic point of view.
Well, when you look at some of the things that are outlined in this piece this morning of what happened when the "we can't wait" strategy first kind of kicked in, creating jobs for veterans was a program that came through that, preventing drug shortages, raising fuel economy standards. That's just a couple of the things on the list. What are you concerned about? What do you think is at the top of his agenda for similar kinds of executive powers action?
Well, so you look at gasoline. Within a half a mile of the studio here in Chicago, gas is about $4.50 a gallon. The president has not used any of executive authority to lower gas prices, which are things that are really inextricably linked to long-term economic prosperity.
How would you do that? How would you use executive powers to lower those gas prices in your
I think it's very simple. I think what you do is you don't slow walk permits. You accelerate permits for oil and gas exploration off of the coast and in the Mountain West. You begin to communicate a far different energy agenda than that is saying yes to Solyndra and no to the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, the president has made a decision as it relates to energy to really cater to a very fringe, very narrow group of his environmental base, as opposed to focusing in on energy policy that is good for the country at large. So I'm not overstating what the president is able to do on energy, but what I am saying is he can lead and he can create an environment where exploration and the supply side of things is perceived more openly and more warmly within the administration. And they're being passive-aggressive at best, and it's not helpful. And I think the president would be wise, in my view, to listen carefully to what the voters said in 2010. The exact same independent voters that voted for President Obama in 2008 voted for a check and balance Congress in 2010, and what they really were saying, in my opinion, is you've got to live within your means and stop spending money you don't have, and enough with these trillion-dollar annual deficits.
Interesting take on that story this morning in the New York Times. Congressman Roskam, thank you very much.